Today, on episode 57 of Rail Talk, we welcome one of the hottest jockeys at the Saratoga meet, Dylan Davis. We also preview a monster Travers Day, recap the Alabama, and there's a bee in my bonnet about something. I'm Joe Bianca. I'm an ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. And John, there's a nice little breeze coming through. Fall is right around the corner, and I know I'm not the only sweaty dude out there who's looking forward to it.
Jonathan Green, general manager of DJ Stable. Joe, when I was sitting at the chaplaincy brunch last week when they were honoring my dad, I happened to be sitting next to Lisa Lazarus, the head of HISA.
Ooh.
Yes. And our video came up, and it was like a freeze screen for a couple of seconds before it started. And you and I were side by side like we always are. And Lisa leaned over and said, "You guys look like brothers. That's how much you've been working together." So I went a little closer with the razor today, just so that way we'd look a little bit less like siblings and a little bit more like I'm your crazy uncle instead.
Patty's like our crazy aunt or crazy.
That is true.
Older sister.
You said that, not me. I was going to say stepsister, but you went with the crazy aunt instead.
I feel like a crazy uncle would then fit right in to this dynamic. All right, so we were recording this on Tuesday. We're 4 days away. This will probably be out on Wednesday. 3 days away. Let's just say it's Wednesday. 3 days away we are from a blockbuster Travers Day card. It's always one of my favorite cards of the year. I feel like this, Belmont Day, Breeders' Cup days, those are the three best cards. Maybe you want to throw in Derby Day there too. But Travers Day's got 5 straight grade ones from race 9 to race 13. There's a pick 5 that links all of them together. And we got to start with the big race because we've previewed it somewhat for the last couple of weeks, and it did not disappoint. We got 8 horses. Normally you'd be like, only 8 horses for a $1.25 million race. Dude, could you find a 50-1 shot in this race? Could you even find a 20-1 shot in this race? Everybody in this race has a legitimate case to be made for them. Batten Down is probably going to be the longest shot at like 20-something to 1. And all he's done is run 3 straight 93 buyers. He was third in the Jim Dandy, won the Ohio Derby by Tappet at a close hatches. He's going to be the big long shot. So that tells you the star power that we have. The conversation has to start and end with, I think, Torpedo Anna. Because we just don't get this that often in racing, to have these top fillies go up against the boys and see what they're truly made of, because she was obviously so much better than the fillies. The Alabama was like a kind of a snooze. I mean, it was an exciting race on the track, but a snooze in terms of like star power. Torpedo Anna, thank you, Kenny McPeak, for putting her in this spot. She drew the rail. Mm-hmm. So that can be a little bit tricky. There is a bunch of other speed. You got Unmatched Wisdom. Batten Down's got some pace. Obviously, Dornock's going to try to gun and go. Fierceness from the far outside. But the good thing about Torpedo Anna is she doesn't need the lead. She just has been up close to the pace in the last couple of races because that's how it shook out. And, she went to the lead in the Kentucky Oaks. I think surprisingly. I think most people did not expect her to be on the lead, and she went wire to wire. You go back in her past performances, she's 6 for 7 with 1 second, and she's won from 7th, from 4th, from 3rd, from 2nd. It's going to be tricky, though, John, navigating a good spot from the rail, because she's not going to catch anybody by surprise. This isn't some filly that has like a 12-1 shot. She's 3-1 morning line. So the other riders are going to be aware of her. They might try to make it a little bit tight going into the first turn. It's going to be on Brian Hernandez to work out a good spot. But if there's any filly that I think can do that from that spot, it's her.
Well, and Joe, you bring up the depth of talent in this race, from Torpedo Anna, the one horse, all the way to the outside horse Fierceness. And it really, to me, it comes down to a couple of questions. Torpedo Anna is going to have it, this is going to be her toughest race of her career. As well it should in the Grade 1 Travers. You're looking at Fierceness. Which Fierceness shows up? Is it the Fierceness of the Jim Dandy, Florida Derby, and Breeders' Cup Juvenile, or is it the Fierceness of the Kentucky Derby, the Holy Bull, and the Champagne? You don't know. I mean, he's about as schizophrenic of a horse as there is out there, and his racing lines show that. If it's the off on pattern, then he would be off this Travers. And there's some rumors out there that are saying that he's, hitting the racetrack and he's not 100% sound, but nobody knows. Nobody really knows that that's the case. And I think it's all, speculation at this point. You got Dornoch, who's won 2 in a row, and if you take out the Kentucky Derby race, he's just been improving every single race. Honor Marie is a horse that we haven't spoken about, Joe. Coming off a layoff, has similar racing style to Sierra Leone in the race, but he's the quote unquote fresh horse of the race, and they're putting blinkers on. So maybe they're trying to induce a little bit more speed in that son of Honor Code. But to me, I think that the race sets up really nicely for Sierra Leone, who in his 7th race, he's improving every single race, Joe. He's a Fasig-Tipton grad, $2.3 million purchase. But if you look at his numbers, whether it's the buyer numbers or the sheet numbers or the thorough manager, whatever group you want to use as far as a measuring stick, he has actually improved every single race, which is not easy to do at this high level. So I think things set up for him, and if there's speed out there, which there's an abundance of speed in a race like this, I think it's going to set up for a horse like him if Pratt can navigate the traffic and kind of part the seas in this race. I said Sierra Leone and you rolled your eyes. What's that about, bud?
Listen, how many times have I heard that a race sets up for Sierra Leone and he doesn't win enough? No, I mean, he's obviously very, very talented. He shows up every time, runs his race, but I've heard that before. Mm-hmm. And he lost at 4-5 last time. He lost at 8-5 in the Belmont. He's just one of these horses that leaves himself too much to do. And yeah, I think there will be a quick pace, but there's other closers in here. Like you said, Honor Marie has got a good closing kick. He's going to be heard from, I think, down the stretch. Corporate Power is a little bit of an interesting long shot. He had to be chasing Unmatched Wisdom last time through a slow pace. If he gets some pace to run at, I think he's a little interesting for Shug. Listen, I'm not here to knock on Sierra Leone. He's a nice horse. He shows up every time. Just getting a little tired of this race sets up for him, and then he just comes a little bit too late.
Right. Joe, let me ask you a question. I'm going to have you put your breeder's hat on, okay? Say that now you're in charge of breeding mares, okay? Everything else being equal. Would you breed your mare to Sierra Leone, or would you breed your mare to Arabian Night, who just retired after 6 starts?
That's the proverbial loaded question, I think. Yeah, Sierra Leone, because he has staying power. Like he's already run more times than Arabian Night did, and he's only halfway through his 3-year-old season. And he's by gun runner, and he is proven that he can go a route of ground. I'm going to say Sierra Leone for 500, Alex.
Okay, all right, that's fair. I mean, that's the answer that I would give. Also, there is a group of breeders in and around the country that would say, hey, Sierra Leone was a $2.3 million yearling. Arabian Night was a $2.4 million 2-year-old. He being Arabian Night had more speed and was earlier developing than Sierra Leone. Therefore, his foals should get earlier speed. But I'm in the same camp you are in, which is you go with a horse that's sounder. You go with a horse that has proven it over a greater distance at a higher level, like the Jim Dandy, the Belmont, the Kentucky Derby, the Bluegrass, et cetera, than breeding to a horse like Arabian Night. Not that, Arabian Night isn't going to be commercial, because a lot of those horses that have early speed and are that good looking, get a lot of mares, at least in the first year. But it's something that I know I kind of, backdoored that conversation into an important race like the Travers. But it is something that people are talking about, which is the sustainability of the breed and whether or not we should be breeding to horses that only run 5-6 times in the course of their careers. We can have that conversation ad nauseum at another time. But actually I was reading what Tinky was writing, was tweeting. And look, we've bred a lot of mares and we've bought some Uncle Mo's. And for the most part, it's harder to keep them sound than it is other types of horses. So, everyone can do what they want to do. We're going to shy away from breeding to an unproven horse, an unsound horse, as it were, like an Arabian Night versus, a number of horses in here. I mean, Dornoch has run 9 times and is improving as he gets older. You look at Batten Down, who has just bred up the wazoo and is really coming into his own. So I think we're going to see some stallions coming out of the Travers that 2 or 3 years from now, we're going to look back and say, oh yeah, the 24 Travers, that was a jumping off point for all of these horses to meet and kind of round one before they all meet in the Breeders' Cup Classic, because that's where the majority of these horses are going.
Yeah, no, I mean you could add like 2, 3 older horses, and this would be a Breeders' Cup Classic field, I think.
Yep.
And it would really not need much more than that. Yeah, it's a good point that I would love to have Tinky back on to talk about something like that, because that's the only way. If you subscribe to that theory that horses that don't run a certain amount of times produce less sound horses over time, the only way to have any kind of guardrail against that is to institute some kind of rule that says you have to have a dozen starts, et cetera, et cetera. But right. I'll venture to guess that the stallion owners and the stallion farm owners are not going to be down with that. I mean, but it's
right.
It is a little frustrating to see horses go to the breeding shed after 6 starts. Like, obviously, people are going to yell at me and say, "Hey, what about Flightline?" Flightline never really had like the super unsoundness issues. He had like little nagging things here and there. But yeah, I obviously would have loved to see him run more too. But he should be the exception, not the norm.
Right. And it's up to the breeding populace to make those decisions about to whom they're going to breed. If they insist on breeding to horses that haven't run that often, or only show brilliance and can't have staying power into their 3-year-old, 4-year-old year, if they even make it that long, that's their choice. But it is going to beget other foals that maybe have issues. It's not guaranteed. I mean, Vekoma, who is killing it as far as a stallion, a freshman sire right now. If you look at him, and his, the way it was taught to me, front legs are supposed to be like a clock hands, from 12 to 6. Okay. You look at Vekoma, even as established as he was as a racehorse, running, and he only ran like 8 or 9 times, but, as winning the races he did, you look at his legs, they're not 12 to 6. This clock is broken. It's in all different directions. Right. But
a famous paddler.
Right. But his foals, for the most part, have come out and they've been pretty correct, or more importantly, they track correctly. They do it. So, there's all kinds of arguments that you can make pro or con, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't surprise me to see, sounder horses beget sounder foals.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, you mentioned like a lot of these horses are probably going to become stallions in the Travers. I hope it's a couple of years from now.
Right.
That's another thing, and we're going off kind of on a tangent here, but whatever. That's what this show is about, tangents. I just hate seeing so many horses retire after their 3-year-old season.
Right.
Like it's just a bummer. There has to be some kind of staying power, I think, for horses, for people to truly be able to enjoy them, for you to be able to build fan bases. Like, I get it in like the odd scenario where, like, Justifier was a Triple Crown winner and then he had an injury and it's like, well, what are we going to do? Let's retire. That was a bummer, but I kind of get it, at least for a horse that's that valuable. But you got a lot of 3-year-olds, like, this the one just popped into my head. I don't mean to single anybody out, but like Cyberknife. Mm-hmm. Didn't he like win the Haskell and then disappear into the breeding shed like a couple of months later?
Right.
Like, I just hope that some of these horses at least are back to run as 4-year-olds, because it is an awesome crop.
Right.
And God knows this game needs some good older horses to fill these big time stakes races. And thankfully Arthur's Ride has now burst onto the scene. But before that, it was very bleak in the older horse division. It's been like that for, I think, most of the last decade.
Right. Well, it's so, that is the golden pot at the end of the rainbow, is when you get a horse, good colt, well-bred, decently bred, what have you, wins a grade 1, all of a sudden they're worth so much more. And you're trying to do everything you can not to get the tarnish off the apple. But you gotta run these horses. That being said, if you get a stallion deal, it's a shit ton of money. I mean, you have to respect that. And there are costs that go into it. Like, let's just say the best case scenario for Sandman, who's a son of Tappet. Okay. He ends up doing something, remarkable and wins a grade 1 in the course of his career. It's going to be really hard to keep him on the racetrack at that point, for the simple reason that, like, the insurance alone, of a $10-20 million valuation on a horse is obscene. You're running basically to pay premiums, is what it comes down to. And I think, I can't speak for everyone who was involved in Flightline, but I think that's what happened with Flightline. It just got to be too cost prohibitive to keep him running, and he had a stellar undefeated record.
Yeah. I know it's easy for me to say it's not my money, but I know, just speaking from a fan's perspective, like, I miss Jess Jackson. Mm-hmm. I miss Curlin running until he was 5-6 years old,
right.
Him trying him on the grass, and we just don't, it's easier said than done. But I think occasionally we need some sportsmen who are willing to race horses at least into their 4-year-old season. You don't have to race them till they're 6, but can we not shuttle them off to stud like after they win one half-assed grade 1 as a 3-year-old? I mean, we're not hurting for stallions here, people.
That's
like
true.
we're full up. So it doesn't seem like we need that many new stallions just because they, like I said, they won one sort of grade 1 race. Let's move on to a couple of other races.
Wait, what race were we talking about there? I forgot. That was like 10 minutes ago.
The Haskell,
the Travers. What?
We started talking about the Travers,
that's right. And boy, we meandered.
It turned into my anti-cyberknife rant.
Great. No t-shirts or hats from them. Thanks, Joe.
Didn't wake up thinking I would be talking about Cyberknife today on the show, but that's why we love what we do, man. It could take us anywhere. Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group. The Green Group, as you know, helmed and founded by the master, the man, the myth, the legend, Leonard Green. And it was a very, very special day last Wednesday at Saratoga. The racetrack chaplaincy brunch honored Len Green up at Saratoga National Golf Club. I unfortunately had some personal things going on, was not able to make it up, which was deeply regretful because it looked like a phenomenal, phenomenal morning honoring a terrific guy. And John, why don't you tell us a little bit as our eyes and ears on the ground, what it was like?
Well, Joe, you were definitely missed. We kept an empty table at our by my side, just as an homage to you, because we knew in spirit you wanted to be there.
We did,
but no, it was a great event, the chaplaincy brunch. I give your man Terry Finley a lot of credit because he was involved in, obviously he's like very high up in the ranks with that organization, and very involved in getting sponsors and donors and everything like that. But he was also a good sport because Len's theme for the day was, I want to raise more money than you did when Terry was honored. And that was like going through a couple different speeches. So I give him a lot of credit for being a good sport with all that. But Joe, they raised over $375,000 for the Horseman's Chaplaincy, and it couldn't go to a better organization. People taking care of people, and giving scholarships out, and everything from college tuition to backpacks for school to shoes to food and everything in between. And it was a great day. Julia was there. Thank you again, Julia, and her man Dylan for driving all the way up, that morning of. But it was a packed house. It was for a great cause. And again, if you want to donate, we'll put the graphic underneath on how to donate. But Len was in his element. I was very proud to see him talking about, why this particular honor was so near and dear to his hearts. And other than saving people taxes, he loves raising money for good causes.
He does, and he was a well-deserved honoree. And yeah, if you want to help support all the money that was raised last Wednesday or add to that, you go to rtcany.org. That's the website for the Racetrack Chaplaincy of New York. They do unbelievable work, and they put on a great event every single year. So shout out to Len. And of course, tax season, not quite around the corner, but you should always be thinking about it. And Len and the Green Group, John,
you got a couple of extensions coming up, Joe. You got the September 15th corporate extension that is due. So if you were on extension and you need to file those returns, you only got a couple of weeks left. And surprisingly enough, that was one of the deadlines that's not occurring on your birthday. I mean, on your wedding day. Close, but not quite. And then October 15th is the personal deadline. So if you don't have your personal returns in, then expect a knock on the door from the IRS, with the hand open, looking for penalties and interest on top of what you owe. So now is even more critical time to see Len and his group at the Green Group. And what's that phone number again?
732-634-5100. Green Group.
Thank you, Michael, as always. And thank you, John, for that great kind of off the cuff testimonial for the Green Group, because they are the best in the business. Len is the best at what he does. You go to greenco.com or hit him up at that number that Michael just sang for you. And he'll get you squared away. He'll do everything he can to make this, and this being horse racing, a more profitable, more manageable pursuit for all of us who love it. There's a couple other races I wanted to touch on beyond the Travers, which is obviously appointment viewing. How about the H. Allen Jerkins, the former King's Bishop?
Yep.
No disrespect to the chief, Alan Jerkins, but I always like the King's Bishop better as a name.
It had some panache to it.
Yeah, so in my mind, it's still the King's Bishop, but it is a stacked race. You got World Record, who won the Amsterdam, which is the prep for this race, by 6 3/4 with a 101 buyer. He's 8-1 in the morning line. Like, speak easy. Who's 2 for 2 with a 197 buyer.
Right.
8-1 morning line. Domestic Product, who won by 7.5 in the Dwyer with a 101 buyer. 9-2 morning line. Bob Baffert ships in Prince of Monaco. He and Bookham Dano are going to be back in this race. Bookham Dano, I think, is the very lukewarm 7-2 morning line favorite. It's just one nice horse after another, and a little new trainee for Mark Cassie on the outside, and Little Knee, who was just a narrow second to Bookham Dano at the Jersey Shore. Man, John, there are so many ways to go in this race.
So many different ways, and you have horses cutting back in distance. You have like Domestic Product. You have horses that are trying to extend their distances. Like Bookham Dano and Little Knee. Bookham Dano, I thought, was really interesting because they cross-entered him in the Jerkins and in the sprint race at Charlestown, the 7/8 race. So they have a decision to make, because there's no benefit from a breeding standpoint. The horse is a gelding, Bookham Dano. So, they're going to have an interesting decision to make once they see, how things continue to play out and which horses are going to actually go to the races. But he's the only one that is cross-entered in Charlestown and Saratoga. I think you can say that every year. You can say, like, there's no horses that have been cross-entered in Charlestown and Saratoga. Those two just don't go together. But Joe, I'm fascinated by that race, and I'm also fascinated by the sword dance. I think the sword dance, it's a smaller field, but again, it's chock full of really good horses. When you have Farbridge and Silver Knot, and Soldier Rising and Measured Time going head to head, and that doesn't even include the Linda Rice horse Pioneering Spirit or a Pletcher's horse on the outside, Grand Sonata. I mean, that is a really solid group that is basically a prep for the Breeders' Cup Marathon.
Well, the Breeders' Cup Turf, yeah, like the Sword Dancer is the prep for the Breeders' Cup Turf. Other than that, you nailed it, John.
Breeders' Cup Turf Marathon. It's a mile and a half.
That's not what it's called.
What?
That's not what it's called.
That's what I call it because otherwise it's the Breeders' Cup Turf or the Breeders' Cup Turf, right? I mean, they don't really distinguish between, I guess, the Turf Mile versus the Turf. Yeah.
It's called the Mile.
Okay. Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
Come on. Come back to earth, buddy.
What do you think? I'm on the board. I should know these things. I call it the marathon because that's what it is. Damn it!
I personally cannot wait for the Breeders' Cup Turf Dirt Marathon Sprint Stakes.
There you go.
That is my favorite
for fillies and colts, 3 years old and up.
For Arabian,
it's going to be a 20-horse field. The distance is going to be like they're going to be staggering it. It'll be a relay race. Okay, let's just throw with jumps, obviously. Yeah, well, of course. Why wouldn't you do anything else? And it's going to be run on the Friday before the Thursday before the Breeders' Cup, i.e. the way that Ontario is handling their card. That they canceled and now they're bringing it back the day before the weekend.
We'll get to that.
All right. Put a pin in that.
I honestly, I don't share your vision for the Sword Dancer. To me, this is Charlie Appleby 1-2 all the way with Measured Time and Silver Knot. Okay. As long as they're able to, the only possible fly in the ointment is that they both like to be close.
Right.
But it's very hard to imagine those two going at it up front unless someone else really pushes the pace. So I think that's a 1-2. That's the only two I'll be using in the pick 5. And then I just got to mention one more horse in the Ballerina, the Grade 1 Ballerina Stakes. We got Vava, the queen of the filly and mare sprint division and the queen of West Point and all the West Point horses.
You're such a homer.
There. She's even money in a Grade 1, John. Is she not worth mentioning?
But still, that's the only horse in the race that you're looking at. The only one.
Yeah, listen, I'm happy for you if you want to bring anybody else up.
How about Society?
I like Society, and she's a nice horse. My only thing is, again, from a homer's perspective, I hope Money's Gold stays in this race because she's cross-entered in the Spartan Fancy on Friday, and if she doesn't run, Society looks completely loose on the lead. Yeah. Like, I know Vava was able to run her down when she was loose last time, but that was Society's first race off of a 7-8 month layoff, 7.5 month layoff, let's say. Yeah, and so she's got to be tighter, I think, for this
Right.
race coming up. So I'm hoping there's a little pace to push her. But
Yep.
yeah, no, it's a fascinating race as well.
It is, and I'm not poo-pooing Vava. I really like her as a racehorse. We've talked about it before. I think Sherry DeVoe's done a phenomenal job with the horse. But yeah, you got to talk about more than one horse in a grade one, for God's sake, Joe. Come on.
Okay.
How about the fact
the floor is yours, my friend?
Okay, well, that's why I'm jumping in. How about the fact that in the Alabama, we talked about it last week. I'm going to throw myself under the bus. I was like, oh, there's two gun runners, and there's two Arrogates, and a Constitution, and a Justify, and blah, blah. I didn't even mention the Union Rags. And of course, that's the filly that won. What a gutty performance by Power Squeeze to just hold off Candied.
Yeah. I thought we were going to talk about that race later.
Well, that's all I got to say about that race.
Okay. Yeah. Alabama Day in 10 words from Jon Green.
Jon Green cannot use 10 words for anything. He cannot describe anything in 10 words or less.
I will say, speaking of Johns, there was a horse in the...
Okay, I want to see where you go with this one.
No, we're not talking about prostitution again, John. No, it's the horse in the first race. I don't know if you saw, but Jonathan's Way, a horse for Phil Bauer. Oh my goodness! If you haven't seen that race, go back and watch that replay. In the first race on Saturday, August 17th at Saratoga, there was a little bit of a tip out on him, and we had two nice horses in the race with West Point. And Moment's Notice ran second. We're really happy with him. This horse broke slow, made like a 5-wide move all the way around the turn, and then just exploded away in the stretch and was like geared down the last 16th. Dude, if they run, it's a little maybe quick turnaround, but if they run that horse back in the hopeful, good luck to everybody else. Rail Talk is sponsored by Fasig-Tipton. We talked last week about what a fabulous couple of weeks it was, sales it was for Fasig up at Saratoga. It really is unlike anything, any other company or any other show put on in the business, the Fasig Saratoga sale. And then the New York Breds too. It's an excellent, excellent experience for anybody who hasn't gone and you're going to be in Saratoga next August. Make it a point to go to the pavilion across the street from the racetrack and check out the sales because it's so unique and they do such a good job. And obviously tremendous horses come out of it. Like we look no further than Sierra Leone, who we were just talking about, Fasig-Tipton, Saratoga graduate, who is on the cusp of being one of the top 3-year-olds in the country. Looking forward, we've got the August digital sale coming up very soon. Today's the 20th, 22nd through the 27th is the August digital sale. You can go online and check out the catalog right now. Check out video, pedigree, past performances, all that good stuff. I'm starting to see some of these horses run back, John, more and more in the past performances. There was a horse on Sunday at Saratoga that should have won that ran second. That was only a $25,000 purchase from the Fasig digital sale. And a nice horse for Joe Sharp. A lot of these horses can be turned around really quickly, and it's their race Fasig's at the forefront. Just simply put.
And don't forget about Ice Cream You Scream, Joe, who just won. Was it a grade 1 out in California?
Yeah, Del Mar Oaks.
Yeah, so that was just like 2 weeks after they purchased a third of the horse on the flash sale. So go Fasig-Tipton with another graduate and another grade 1 winner.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and just making it easier to have horses change hands and still be racing, I think is a huge deal for the industry because, most of the thing about buying yearlings, and we love it and we do it all the time, you got to wait a little bit. They just necessarily need time. If you're buying from the digital sale, you can turn them right around and be racing in your colors in like the next couple of weeks. In terms of physical sales coming up, we got the California Fall Yearlings, which is September 24th in Pomona, California. The catalog for that is now online. Then the Mid-Atlantic Fall Yearlings, the October digital sale, the Saratoga Fall Mix Sale, the Kentucky October Yearlings, October 21st through the 24th, and then the November sale, the next mega bright star night in the sales world is November 4th, the night of the stars, as we call it. Just us, John. No one else calls it that. It's right after the Breeders' Cup. It's a terrific show, and we can't wait for it. Shout out to Fasig for doing a great job all year on all platforms that they possibly can reach. So we're so stoked to bring on this next guest. He's a popular interview these days because he's killing it at Saratoga this meet. 23 winners, currently sitting 4th in the jockey standings. Dylan Davis, welcome to the show.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you, and it's so great to see the success you're having because I feel like you've done it the hard way. You stay at Aqueduct in the winters. You have built up business slowly but surely over the years. What is there any one? I'm sure there's not one factor, but what are some of the factors that you think have contributed to you having such a breakout Saratoga meet?
I think it was staying with every year in the NYRA circuit and working hard and building the relationships up with the trainers and owners and I like to see that success that we're having. I feel like it's been a breakout year, and we're building off of that.
I just got a quick follow up because I think, so much of being a jockey and being at the top levels has to be confidence. Where you got to, I feel like it's like any other sport. Like if you're a hitter that's on a really good hitting streak, you just seeing the ball really well. Is it kind of like that for you? Like, do you just feel like your confidence is through the roof now, as opposed to maybe when you were in some slumps back in the day?
Yeah, so I definitely correlate confidence with wins. When you keep winning, your confidence builds more and more. So I think those grow together. And with the wins like this meet so far, people keep building off of that, and I get better mounts for because of the winners.
Right. And Dylan, just walk our audience through what your day looks like, and maybe even a racing day. You're waking up at I'm sure you're waking up at like 10 in the morning, rolling out of bed, going right to the jocks room. give us an idea of like what goes on in the day of the life of Dylan Davis at Saratoga.
Yeah, so I am a father of 2 kids, but one of them is already down in Long Island. My wife's down there, Sarah, getting ready for school. But the Mondays and Tuesdays I have very easy days. It just depends on rain. But Wednesdays to Sundays I am working a lot of horses every day. Usually 6 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 starting, and I'll work maybe 3 to 4 in the morning. Turf workouts Fridays and Sundays. We'll maybe have an additional 2 horses as well. Then after that, I'm usually go straight to the jocks room and get ready for the races. So just preparation, cleaned up from the morning, doing a little bit of handicapping, stretching, and my weight's very good, so I don't have to go to the hot box at all. And especially with the heat now, it's really good. And then after that, I go race by race and see how the track bias is going and what I have to do to adjust as the card goes.
Yeah, you mentioned handicapping. I always wonder, like, what, in the jocks room, are all the guys watching replays? Are they looking through the form? What's your personal strategy to get up to speed on these horses? Like, take us into that room in terms of the preparation that you and the other guys are doing.
Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly what other guys are doing, but for me, the very first thing I look at is speed horses, the pace of the race. I want to see how fast. I have a general idea of how fast the race is going to be. Then after that, I'm going to see where I think my horse is going to be, and what I need to do after that to get to the wire first. So whether I need to ask him a little more out of the gate or let him set back. Then I look at the previous rides on my horse, whether it was me or another rider. Maybe there was some bad decision making, or the horse was too wide or whatnot, and then I adjust as well. What I think I need to be done. Then you just really can't go out with one plan. You have the trainer and owners putting their thoughts into the race, and then also you have to have an open mind for the race when the gates open up, because everything could change. Other riders have different mentalities and what they want to do as well. So we're all adjusting every eighth of a mile in the race, and it just it's a constant flow. So that going back to like the previous years, learning from experience and what I think is the best decision out there at the time, and that's why the owners and trainers ride me, so to make the best decision possible.
Yep. And Dylan, when you're out in a race and it's starting to unfold, and I'm sure you're seeing in your mind, okay, this is what I expected, or this is nowhere near what I expected. How much communication is going on between the jockeys, where maybe you're trying to hit a hole, or maybe they're getting in your way, or like that? Is there a lot? Is there not at all? You're really just kind of in a zone. What, walk us through when you're actually midway through a race, how you're communicating with your horse and also with the other riders.
Yeah, so usually it's very quiet out there with the jockeys' communication, because when somebody's in jeopardy or their life is on the line, they want to be able to be heard. So it's quiet out there for the most part. Then also communicating with my horse, just trying to get them to relax and get them into a rhythm that I like, and then go on from there. You're always trying to figure out what the next move is, and what the other riders are doing out there as well. What are their expectations? Like what I think they're going to do. and you try to think about, you're almost predicting the future of the race. Is this where I want to be at the half mile pole? Is this where I want to be at the quarter pole when everything is unfolding? So you're just trying to work out a trip, and then riding with the same riders frequently makes the decisions a lot easier.
All right, let's get to the specific horses, because we already asked you our stupid question since we're never on the back of a horse. What's it like being a jockey? Let's get to some specific horses that I'm sure will put a smile on your face. Carson's Run.
Yeah.
Man, what a journey we've had with that horse. Obviously I work for West Point. I know this backstory. He's brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, and he's brought you 2 Grade 1 wins. One is a 2-year-old, one is a 3-year-old. Can you just talk about what it's been like to ride him and watch him develop ultimately into a Saratoga Derby winner?
Yeah, so he's a very special horse to me with 2 Grade 1s. Given that the Clement team given me a lot of support, but I found him as a young 2-year-old juvenile. I've been riding him his whole career besides one start, and we built together, a nice bond. We continue to grow, and I learn every start from him, and the workouts in between the races we learned together, and he's given me a lot of success in the racing, and so that's what he'll always be a special horse to me.
So, Joe, since you brought up one of your horses, I'm going to bring up one of mine that's near and dear to my heart, and that's Webslinger. And Dylan, I don't know if you realize, but you are the last jockey to ever win the $500,000 now. They don't even write it anymore. That's how great of a job you did winning that race. They're like, nope, we can't top this. We're getting rid of it. It's off the calendar. But I met you in the paddock, and you were on the longer shot of the 2 that we had in there. We had another horse named Conman, who we thought was the favorite. And all you did was go from last, rocketed up to first, and basically put that horse in a different stratosphere. He went to the Breeders' Cup, and kind of the rest is history. What was going through your mind when you were like, damn, I could be at Saratoga, and instead I'm at lowly Monmouth, riding for the greens?
No, I never thought that. You never know where a good horse can come from. But Mark Cassey was another big supporter of mine, always gives me good opportunities. But you have to ride a race with open mind. Like you said, I was a longer shot of the couple of the 2 horses, and I just ride my race, let my horse get into a good stride, get him in, and then my second goal is get him to good rhythm. Means that they're in pace, they're doing it easily, and once you can get to that spot, you're going to have finish. So you're just always trying to get them to get that rhythm. And then you just ride the flow of the race, where if guys are moving early, you don't panic. You're trying to find a spot and make sure you have a clear spot for home, turn for home.
No doubt. One other horse I wanted to ask you about, and this is a joint family horse here on Rail Talk, is Sandman, owned in part by West Point, in part by DJ Stable. What a nice looking horse. You rode him terrifically, got that nice little pocket trip, came through on the inside. He's a young horse, still developing, obviously cost a lot of money. What were your impressions riding him?
I really liked him a lot. He's a nice, big, strong, I think he's a Tappet colt. And he, Mark, again, very easy to ride for. You just make sure you have to do your job. But he wanted me to teach him something that day, break him well. If he's on the lead, that's fine. But if he breaks okay, and you can settle with him and teach him to kick back and being inside, then he would have rather opted with that trip. So he broke well, and he actually fell into a nice pocket trip. Didn't panic. I felt really nice the whole way around there. He was just the pace was very easy for him, so he was very light on the bridle and just eager to go. I can feel him. He was waiting for my commands. And, just riding the rail, saving ground, let him see what it's like inside there. And he has got some kickback, and the leader ended up coming off the fence, and I had enough horse to jump through there. He actually was a little hesitant to go through, but a little more encouragement. He responded, and together as a team, we went through, and he had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, I like it.
Absolutely. And it goes back to confidence. I think if you hadn't had that confidence, the way you're riding right now, maybe the horse would feel that. Is that something that horses can? Okay. Yeah,
of course. No, they definitely could feel it. They just feel how you're sitting on them, and they can feel your tenseness. If you're moving around a lot, or even in the hands, or even sitting in the saddle, they feel all of those commands, and sometimes they can get confused or not sure what's going on. And then then they get a little worried because they feel like you're worried and they don't not sure what's going on, and then they could question like you say, like there's a hole in the rail. Is this really what the rider wants? Why is he nervous? So then they can get a little spotty, and then they might not run the same way.
Right, right. Let me just ask one more question, Dylan, and it's more of an overarching question about the industry. So now we're a year and a half into the HISA era. And we basically, hopefully have racetracks that are safer and protocols to make the horses safer. Are you feeling that out there? Are you feeling like that horses are sounder when they're going to the racetrack, or are we just kidding ourselves that these protocols aren't really doing what we are expecting them to do?
I don't think that that the number of strikes has made the horses sounder. I think it's the increase in the veterinarian protocols and medication rulings that actually makes it feel safer. So, I mean, I don't know if it's part of my success. I'm sitting on better horses, but overall, I think that I'm sitting on sounder horses. I haven't had to scratch as many now that the HISA rules have set in. But the 6-strike rule, I don't think has anything to do with the soundness of horses, but I definitely see a difference between pre-HISA, post-HISA.
Yeah, no, that's awesome to hear.
Good to know.
Yeah.
One last question for me. Obviously you come from a jockey family. Your dad, Robbie Davis, was one of the most talented jockeys of the last 30, 40 years or so. There's a great story about him that I went back and read recently in Sports Illustrated way back in 1989 called The Longest Ride. And it was kind of all about the ups and downs of his riding career. And he had to step away from the sport for a little bit just to kind of get his mind right and get in a position where he was able to come back and fully dedicate himself mentally and physically to riding. Has he imparted like any wisdom on you in terms of not just dealing with the physical tolls of being a jockey, but the mental tolls as well? Because, I don't have to tell you, it's not a sport where you get a ton of days off, a ton of mental health days. You just kind of got to keep going back out there. What has he taught you about that along the way, if anything?
Yeah, that's really good. It's a good question. Before I started my career, he wanted to make sure that this is really something that I wanted to do. And he instilled me that you cannot be a jockey a few days of the week. You have to dedicate your life to the sport, and you're 100% in or you're not. You can't just decide like certain days that you're going to be a jockey. So after that, I told him I was going to dedicate my life to the sport and go full force, and he was 100% behind me on that. So I mean, it is difficult at times that where you're not having your best days or whatnot, but I know that when I'm sitting on the horse's back, that's the exact place where I want to be, almost like a bliss moment, but I know that I belong there.
Yeah. No, I mean, you've proven that over and over again. Yep. Your kids, do they show any interest in the horses yet?
Yeah, my 2 kids. I have my son. He wants to be a jockey, but he's only 7 years old, so he's got a long ways to go. But right now, he loves to play golf, and I just keep him going with that, and we play together on the off days.
Good.
Maybe get him a dirt bike first to train on.
Oh, he's riding 4-wheelers. Yeah, he's doing a lot of other things.
Nice.
Yeah, he's riding some 4-wheelers right now.
Yeah, Dylan, have him continue to play golf and maybe be an owner. Out of the 3 options that you have, being a trainer, jockey, or owner, it's a lot safer on this side of the table for sure. Joe, Dylan, you know this already, but Joe, I didn't realize this until we got Dylan on the air, or in queue to do the interview. But Dylan's been in the top 20 in earnings every year since 2018. I mean, that's unbelievable. When you to with all the jockeys in the population that are out there, what do you attribute that to, Dylan? I mean, is that just because you're one of the top 20 jockeys in the country? Is it strategy as far as picking up mounts? There's got to be some plan. That doesn't happen by accident.
Yeah. So again, a lot. My father's taught me a lot. So you have to surround yourself with the best to be the best. So the best horses are here in New York, and there are a few circuits across the country. Also, the best purses are here. And, I dedicated most of my career in New York year round. So I built it to this moment, and, there's more to come. But I think that because the purses are so well, and I built my business in New York, that has a lot to contribute to the top 20. So, I mean, you could say, like, if you've ridden at a smaller track, it would be definitely a lot more difficult to be top 20 in earnings. So you have to surround yourself with the good horses and the purses to contribute to that.
And the good people like your agent, you were saying.
Yeah, so I mean, I have my agent, Mike McGlory, Richie's older brother. He's a big supporter of mine. We've been together for 7 years now. And he got me when I was doing at my lowest, really, and I didn't really know what track that I could ride at. I was like trying to go back to Kentucky. Right. I was trying to ride Monmouth. I didn't have any business, and he was a big supporter of mine and instilled me to stay, and I believed in him, and we worked very hard for numerous years, 5:30 every morning, even on the off days, because I believed in it and believed in us and believed what we could do. And that's what I could say is that we definitely grew together, and I have to thank a lot to Mike for my business.
Yeah, I don't think it's any coincidence that you started with him, and then the following year you was the first of 6 in a row where you were in the top 20 in earnings. So it's credit to both of you guys.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, I have ultra respect for you, especially because you ride year round in New York. That's not an easy thing to do in the winter. So I just inherently root for guys like you and Kendrick that like stick around and ride through the winter at Aqueduct. I mean, that's got to be tough, but that's got to be also be part of why you are now where you are.
Yeah. Winters can be tough at Aqueduct, but, what I always said is I like when other riders are complaining about the cold because it makes me feel better. So I know that when I'm going out on the track, I'm not the only one riding in those weather conditions. So all the other riders have to do the same, the wind or the cold. So I'm not just the only one dealing with it. So I actually thrive on other riders that don't like it. So it makes me feel better, and I feel like it's something I can capitalize on. I grew up in Saratoga Springs, and the winters were tough, so the Aqueduct winters I just compare it, and is not as bad, really.
Hustle all winter, shine all summer. Yep. I feel like that's the MO here. Dylan, I like it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on, man. And we're so thrilled and so proud to see the success you've had. Keep it going.
Thank you, guys.
Rail Talk is sponsored by TaylorMade. TaylorMade, obviously the leading consignor at the yearling sales. We've got the Keeneland September yearling sale right around the corner. I know, John, they have a big consignment for you guys there. But before we get to that, I wanted to mention we bought a colt by Tacitus last week at Saratoga, and the horse is already sold out. So that tells you a little bit. I know it's an anecdotal thing, but that tells you a little bit, I think, about the reaction of the market to the Tacitus colts. And I've said this before. If he had been a grade 1 winner, there's no way. There's no way that Juddmonte does not stand him. Right. And now, instead, he's standing for $10,000 at TaylorMade. That's going to be such a bargain going forward, I'm telling you, especially once these horses start to get going 2 turns. Yeah. He was a $4 million earner by Tapit at a close hatches. We just talked about that pedigree earlier with Batten Down, and he showed up in race after race, big start after big start. And I just think he's one of those horses that proves that the breeding industry and the business, to me at least, is a little too hyper focused on grade 1s. Because this is a horse who did it year after year after year. And thank your lucky stars that he's available for that price right now, because he won't be soon. So shout out to TaylorMade for snapping him up. John, tell me a little bit about the yearlings you got with them coming up.
Well, Joe, we have 4 colts. We have Essential Quality, first year stallion. We have, I'm doing this off the top of my head, a Munnings, a Medallia colt, and an Uncle Mo colt. Those are the 4 horses that we're selling with TaylorMade out of the upcoming September sale. And you go back to Tacitus. I know that horse of yours, that yearling, sold out quickly because we actually were very interested in the horse, and we put an inquiry in to see if we could buy a piece of him, and the answer came back, sorry, we already sold out. So I know it's sold out very, very quickly. So congratulations to you guys for scooping them up at the right price. And again, Tacitus ran 17 times, Joe, 17 times, and made $4.25 million. Did it over a couple of years of his career, and has bred royally. And shame on us. Shame on me, really, personally, for not breeding to him in the first or second year, because I missed out on quite an opportunity and quite a bargain. But he's throwing good-looking foals. Not this time is having runners all over the place. You look at the upcoming sale, book 1. It's like gun runners and into mischiefs, and not this times. And there's a reason why those three stallions have so many horses in book one. It's because they are just on fire and killing it. And their horses are killing it as far as races that they're winning and places that they're showing up. So that is all good news for TaylorMade Stallions.
Yeah, that was a perfect finale. But I also wanted to mention, I forgot, we also bought an Instagram filly. Instagram, standing at TaylorMade, super precocious son of Instant Mischief. We bought an Instagram filly last week at the New York bred sale that we got a tiny little bit of availability on. So West Point Partners, if you're thinking about it, you should jump in on her because, yeah, I think that's another stallion that TaylorMade has that has immense potential because of his bloodlines. All right, so we haven't done this segment in a while, but there is once in a while going to be a bee in one of our bonnets. So cue that graphic, and I don't even know if we have music for it. If not, we got to get Michael on that case. Last Friday at Del Mar, and we'll put up the video right now. This was the first race on Friday at Del Mar, and there was a horse on the outside who was like a 4-5 favorite. Now, full disclosure, I singled this horse in the pick 5, so I have a reason to be pissed off. However, as I'll explain to in a little bit, that honestly didn't really matter. I was kind of screwed either way. So we'll put up the video, and you can clearly see this horse was a little fractious behind the gate, and they've got the horse to load. And then literally less than a second after they close the gate behind this horse, they open the gate. And as you can see from the video, the assistant starter clearly has his hands on the horse as the gates open. The horse walks out of the gate. Horse is named Comanche Gal and was about 7 or 8 lengths behind the field, basically eliminated at the start. Now, this happens. This is like a kind of a 50-50 deal sometimes because the assistant starters often have their hands on the horse as the gates open, but then they let go right as the gates open. It's a little bit of a tricky dance to do, but this was an obvious one. This guy had his hands on the horse for like almost a full second after the gates open. And that's everything when it comes to horses breaking out of the gate. They looked at it, and lo and behold, they said the horse had a fair start and caused her own problems. Now, far be it from me to question the Del Mar stewards, but was one of her problems the fact that her bridle was being held by the guy who was tasked with getting her out of the gate cleanly? Did she cause that problem of the guy holding her bridle at the exact time that the gates were opening? Because I don't think so. I think that was a mistake. And I'm not even blaming the starter here. They have a really tough job. And I think he was just trying to do his best to try to get the horse ready to race. The gates open way too soon. You have a fractious horse. You load the horse in the gate. You give everybody a chance to settle down, a couple of seconds to settle down and get straightened. Like it was literally like they loaded the gate, pop, the gates opened. So that was the first mistake. Second mistake is when in doubt, refund people's money. And there should be no doubt on this one. To me, this was as obvious and clear as it gets that the horse did not have a fair start. And they said that the horse did and took all that money. God knows how much horse. I should have done the research, but God knows how many thousands of dollars were bet on that horse, not only in the win, but in the exactas and the trifectas and the pick 5s, the pick 3s, the doubles. Had to be hundreds of thousands of dollars that to me were stolen from the bettor. And I don't think that's right. And I think that there should be a lot more scrutiny on things like this from the people who cover racing. Honestly, I saw some tweets about it afterwards, and shout out to Ray Pollock, who I think did speak out on it. I saw too many other tweets that were like, oh, a little bit of a messy start at Del Mar and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, to me, if you can't speak out about this, you should not be covering these races for any major publication. This to me, I know you don't want to editorialize too much, but this was black and white. This was open and shut to me. And it's interesting because there was another scenario on Sunday at Saratoga. I believe it was the 9th race. There was a 7 furlong, 12-5 claimer. And there's a horse who always breaks slow named Blue Plate Special. And the horse broke slowly, and they looked at it, and they said that the horse was a non-starter. Now, I honestly did not necessarily agree with that. I thought that the horse was just a slow-breaking horse. Maybe there was a little millisecond that the starter's hands were on him. I thought that would have been fine, saying that horse got a fair start. But when in doubt, this is what I'm saying. If there's any doubt whatsoever that the horse was able to get out of the gate cleanly, give people their money back, because this is the kind of thing that won't stand for bettors over time. If you're trying to get new bettors into the game and some shit like that happens and they're like, why would I do this instead of going back and betting sports or betting poker or something where I feel like I have a fair shot and I'm not basically set money on fire because the stewards don't want to do the right thing by the bettors. That, to me, that drove me absolutely crazy. And it wouldn't have mattered for my pick 5 because there's another stupid rule in racing. But if the horse was a non-starter, I would have gotten switched to the post-time favorite who did not win the race. So either way, I was fucked. But in this scenario, for everybody who did bet to win and bet to place and bet the exactas and all that, they need to get refunded because this clearly was a horse who did not catch a fair start. And honestly, it was one of those things where I saw the replay and I was like, oh, okay, so it's going to be a non-starter. I assumed. And then 3 minutes later, they're like, official, all the payouts are the same, all the odds are the same. I was like, you have got to be fucking kidding me. And this is just another example of people not doing the right thing by the bettors when it's so easy to do so. This should have been an open and shut decision that the horse was being held, was not able to get out of the gate. Let's make sure that we do the right thing and get these people to keep betting our product, because I was disgusted. I had a bunch of opinions on the rest of the card that day at Del Mar, didn't play them. And I'm not the only one, I'm sure, was completely turned off by that. You got to do better, guys. Just to update everybody on the Rail Talk family happenings as we're recording this podcast. The past week, Patty has been gallivanting all over Norway. And I think we have some pictures that we can throw up right now. And speaking of throw up, that boat makes me feel a little bit nauseous for you, Patty. Hope you're hanging in there. Hope you're feeling good and enjoying the trip with your kids. Shout out to James and Casey. Go ahead, John.
No, I was going to say she's wearing a teeny weeny beanie, which is one of my favorite songs of Jimmy Fallon. So if you don't know it, look it up. It'll never get out of your head.
Yeah. And so we're very happy for her. But some of us have had to work in the last week or two and go around and promoting the podcast. And John, you did a nice appearance with our friend Jason Beam yesterday.
Yeah, Jason Beam, who Joe, we interviewed on the previous podcast, and I think we were trying to get him and just our schedules wouldn't align because he's a busy guy. He's the racing announcer at multiple racetracks, Tampa Bay and now Colonial Downs, and traveling, and he's got the podcast on Twin Spires. But Jason and I had a great talk, not only about the industry and also how I got started it and everything, but we talked a lot about our podcast and yours and my relationship and just how, it was so weird the way that we got everything together. And Jason was surprised, as I think a lot of people are, that you and I haven't known each other that long. Like we kind of got to know each other on the previous show, and that was only like an hour a week. As far as it goes, but for whatever reason, this chemistry works. It's almost like Laverne and Shirley. You probably don't know from that show. That was before your time. But anyway, it's Thelma and Louise when they go off the cliff. We just haven't reached the cliff yet. Is that
Bert and Ernie?
Bert and Ernie. Yeah, we'll keep going backwards through time. Yes, exactly. But Jason was amazed that you and I have only known each other for a couple of years, and yet we have this, this genuine chemistry, both on and off the air. And he was like, I don't have that. I don't have somebody that I'd feel comfortable talking weekly with about horses and things in general. So he was giving us a tip of the cap as far as that goes. But anyway, Jason Beam it was just a really fun conversation with him. It's like 40 minutes, which for me is only answering one question. But you can hear his podcast on Twin Spires and wherever podcasts are sold and disseminated.
Shout out to Jason. He does an excellent job. Great interviewer. It's great to see him being an announcer at multiple tracks. He's a guy who really got it out the mud, as they say. He was just a fan, turned himself into a well-known podcaster, and now a track announcer. So shout out to Jason. And yeah, I agree. We've developed a shocking amount of chemistry in a short amount of time. That's what happens when you have two blowhards with hearts of gold who don't mind making fun of themselves and each other.
That's the key, is that we don't mind making fun of each other or ourselves. And you can't take yourself too seriously on this stuff. We deal with serious topics for sure, but you have to have a little bit of levity and a little bit of self-awareness is the word I was looking for. Because we're important in our respective parts of the industry, but the industry is bigger than both of us combined by a lot. So we can't take ourselves too seriously on this show.
Yeah, like we're not that important. We're not so important that Hall of Fame trainers should be calling the principal on us, trying to get us canceled. But that happens from time to time.
That does happen.
Won't name any names. But yeah, no, John, it's great to be on this ride with you. And yeah, I hope some of this will be in your wedding toast.
Which one?
Oh, wait, did I not tell you you're giving a toast?
Oh, well, it doesn't surprise me. just remember, now I have I'm going to have to look it up in Latin as to say in sickness and in health. So,
he's like watching the Natalma and like Yeah, and then
Yeah.
so
Could you give me a minute? Could you give me a minute, please?
anyway,
Or the Iroquois for that matter.
Yes, it'll be an action-packed day for many reasons. September 14th. That's going to do it for episode 57 of Rail Talk. Thank you to Dylan Davis for coming on. Continued success to him. Thank you to Julia Agresta, our associate producer, battling through COVID to get us through the show.
What a freaking trooper.
Greatly appreciate your toughness, and your grit really defines this show. So shout out to Julia. Shout out to also our associate producer, Nathan Wilkinson. Thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning in. We'll see you next week back here on Rail Talk.